So weighted mean will be computed by using this formula. It looks quite a handful, but it's actually very simple and very easy. Where N1 and N2, let's look at denominator, right? N1 and N2 are the sample sizes of the two subgroups. To use our previous example, it will be 16 and 34, right? So the denominator should be 50 in our previous example because we're asked to compute the average murder rates across 50 states. So it should be 50, right? That sounds right. Okay, then what about the numerator? The numerator, first of all, M1 and M2 are the means of the two subgroups. Okay, so what are they in our previous example? 10.47, 5.87, right? So it will be 10.47. What is it? 5.87. 87. Okay. And now and we know what M1 and N2 is, right? So essentially, M1 times M1 will give us the sum or the total value for this is southern group, southern states. And N2 multiplied by M2 will give us the sum or the total murder rates or the grand murder rates for northern states. So the grand total for southern states and grand total for northern states, when these two grand totals are summed, that will effectively give us the grand total murder rates for the entire country, right? So that will give us the grand total murder rates of the entire country, right? Grand total for southern states, grand total for northern states. We sum them together. That's the grand total for the entire country. And the entire country has 50 states. So we use the grand total for the entire country divided by 50 states. That will give us the average murder rates across 50 states. That makes sense, right? Okay, so now let's do this computation together. So we have, in other words, right, so 16 times 10.47, and then we will sum it with, what is it, 34 times 5.87 divided by 50. Okay, so what is that gonna give us? Let's do this. So it will be 10.47 times 16 plus 34 times 5.87. Okay, so if my calculator is right, the grand total is going to be 367.1 divided by 50. That will give us 7.34. I believe that's the correct answer. So this value obviously, 7.34 is obviously different from the mean that we calculated using the wrong formula, right? 8 point something, right? 8 point something, right? And we notice that the average that we used that we calculated using this formula, right? 10.47 plus 5.87 divided by 2, that will give us 8 point something. So if we compare these two, right, the wrong mean and the correct mean, you will notice that this wrong mean is slightly larger than the correct mean, and larger in the direction that favors the southern states, the murder rates of the southern states. And that makes sense because southern rates, they have fewer cases, right? 16 compared to 34 northern states. At the same time, they have larger values, larger means than the average murder rate for northern states. So a small sample size with a large mean, that will create a bias, right? So the average that is computed using this kind of formula will be biased towards the subgroup that has fewer cases and larger means, right? So that, as we see, right? So the average computed this way is indeed biased toward the average murder rates of southern states compared to this one. So this one is more correct. It is correct because we now sort of account for the differences in the sample size across the two subgroups, right? In a sense, we correct for the unequal sample sizes of the two subgroups. So this average is more correct, right? Okay, so see if we really understand this. I have a second example for you. So let's say, we have, on a 7-point scale, right, from 1 to 7, and then 50 people chose 3, and 30 people chose 6. My question is, what is the mean response for these 80 people? What do we do? What is the mean response for these 80 people? Okay, so obviously, this question is still on this slide, so you should sort of think that maybe this formula should be used again, right? So if you want to solve this problem by yourself, you should now pause before, you hear my explanation, okay? All right, so assume that you have sort of tried to solve this problem by yourself. Let's try to solve this together to see if you get it right. So first of all, if 50 people, all these 50 people chose 3, that simply means the average of these 50 people is 3, right? The grand total for these 50 people is 3 times 50. There are 50 of them. 50 cancel, these two 50s are canceled out by each other, so the average 3. Similarly, the average response for this subgroup of people will be 6. Okay, 6 times 30. That's the grand total for this subgroup. We have 30 people, so these two 30s are canceled out. So now we have M1 is 3, M2 is 6. N1 we have 50, N2 we have 30. That's easy, right? So now we have N1 50, M1 that's 3, N2 we have 30, and M2 we have 6. We have a total of 80 people, right? 50 times plus 30, that's 80. What is that? So 150, 180, so that's 330, right? Divided by 80. So that's 4 point something. Okay. Yeah, 4.125. 4.125. So if you got this number, congratulations. If you did not, you should check your answer. Why, right? Okay, shouldn't be too difficult. Okay, so this is our second type of, central tendency statistic. The last central tendency statistic is median. So median is the value, as we defined before, that fall right at the center of an ordered sample, right? So this is very important, and that's why I italicize this word here. So ordered sample, what does it mean? It means, well, first of all, later on we'll see what it means. So if the median is right at the center or middle of a sample, then what it will do is it will divide the sample into exactly two halves, right? So we have sample of values, and median is always here, right? This is the median. So we have two halves, exactly. So this is 50%, this is another 50%. So whenever, you heard the median income is, 72,000 US dollars, right? Then you should immediately know that in this sample, there will be exactly half of the sample of people that earn more than $72,000 per month, or per year, and there's exactly 50% of the sample that earn less than $72,000 per year. So that's the meaning of median, okay? And that's what we mean when we say that, median sort of splitted the sample into two halves, two equal halves. So it turns out that there are steps to follow, as we do have for means and mode, to find medians. Well, first of all, we should sort the values in a certain order. It can be ascending, it can be descending, doesn't matter, as long as it's one of the two. Okay? The second step is that if the number of the values is an odd number, then median will be the value that is right at the middle of this ordered sample. Okay, let me repeat. Two steps to find median. The first step is always to sort values into a certain order. Ascending, descending, doesn't matter. One of them. The second step is to determine whether the number of values in the sample is an odd number or an even number. If the number is odd, then the median will be the value that's right at the middle of this ordered sample. So let's see what it means. So I would say, okay, find the median of the following values. 24158. Because the median is 1 because it is the value that divide these two sample into half. So two values in each half, then 1 must be the median. Well, wrong. Okay, 1 is not a median. Because if you do this, you ignore the very important first step, and that is to sort values into a certain order. Okay? So if we sort this 5 values in ascending order, it will be 1, 2, 4, 5, 8. Second step is to count or to determine, what is whether the number of values in this sample is odd or even. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 is odd, right? Then the median will be the value that is right at the middle of the sample. So it'll be 4. Okay, so the correct answer. Sorry about that. The correct answer is 4. Okay, that's the median. Okay, so we just discussed the case in which, the number of values in a sample is odd. But what if, you might ask, the number of values in the sample is an even number? So if the number of values in the ordered sample is an even number, then the median will equal the mean, the average of the two values at the middle. Okay, so here's an example. We have the sample value 241586. Well, first of all, we need to sort these values into a certain order. So again, we do it, in ascending order, so it will become 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 8. Okay, and now we'll count how many values are there in the sample. So it's 6 values, right? 2, 4, 6, 6 values. 6 is an even number, so we need to find the two values that's at the middle or the center of the sample. So it's not just 4, not just 5, but both 4 and 5. And step 3 will be find the mean of these two values. So the median will be 4.5, because the mean of 4 and 5 is exactly 4.5, right? So 4 adds to 5 divided by 2 is 9 divided by 2, exactly 4.5. Okay, so this is the correct answer. All right. Okay, it sounds very simple. It is very simple, but just to make sure that we understand this correctly by looking at a next example. Okay, the next example, the question is, what is the median education level? Because median is a very interesting statistic. So we said that mode, right? Mode is our first central tendency statistic, and mode can be used to describe nominal data, ordinal data, interval data, and ratio data. Okay, so it can be used to describe all these 4 types of data. And if you forget already, you should check back to an earlier slide on this topic. Mean, our second type of central tendency statistic, can only be used to describe interval and ratio data. Okay, it cannot be used to describe nominal or ordinal. So median, it can be used to describe ordinal, interval, right, and ratio. So mode can be used to describe all 4 types of data, median only 3 types, and mean only 2 types. Okay, so we just saw in the previous slide, we saw how we can find the median for interval, continuous variables, right? Numbers as values. But now, how do we find the interval or the median for ordinal variables? So education level is obviously an ordinal variable. It sorts people into categories, right? But at the same time, it also ranks other categories. So obviously, the highest education level is doctoral, followed by master's, bachelor's, associates, some college, high school only, and not a high school graduate. Okay, so least educated, most educated. All right, so in other words, so these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 right? These 7 values or these 7 categories are the 7 values for this variable education level. And here I give you the frequency count for each of these 7 values. That is, in a sample of I don't know how many, right? You can easily calculate if you sum all these number up, right? If you sum this up, it's out of certain. Okay, well let's calculate the total sample size because we're going to use that. So what is the total sample size here? Should be very easy to calculate. So we have 38 plus 65 plus 33 plus 7 plus 22 plus 7 plus 3. We have exactly 175 people. All right, so these numbers mean, out of 175 people, 38 of them did not have did not have a high school graduation diploma. 65 of them had only a high school degree, and only 3 have doctoral degrees. Okay? So, my question is, what is the median education level? You would say, well, looking at these numbers, first step is to sort these values into an ascending order. So you'll be 3, right? 7, 7, 22, 33, 38, 65. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Fantastic. We have an odd number of values, so the mid value should be 22. Isn't this the median? Because we have 7 values, right? This is the value right in the middle, and this is an ordered sample, so this is our median and bachelor's degree. Answer is wrong. Okay, so here we should, be very, very careful. If you do it this way, right? If you do it this way, you're essentially dividing the values of a variable into 2 halves, right? You're finding the category that, because 22 correlates to the bachelor's degree, right? So you're finding a value that divides the values into 2 halves, whereas the median is the value that divides the sample into 2 halves. That's a very critical difference. Okay, so we can imagine again, right? We have a 7-point interval. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then we can imagine there are 500 people answering this scale. So if you do it this way, you're effectively saying that the median for these 7 values is 4. Well, 4 obviously did not divide these 500 people into 2 halves, right? This is the wrong median, right? So here what we need to do to find a median value is like this, right? First of all, we sum up all the values to find the sample size. So we have 175 people. And we just said median is the value that divided the sample into 2 halves. So we're going to ask, okay, what is the half value for 175? So 175 divided by 2. What is that? It is 7.5. Okay? So in other words, we should find the value that includes the 87.5th individual, and that category will be our median education level, because that particular level will include the person that divide the sample of 175 into 2/2. I'll say it again. Median. Median is the value that divides the sample into 2/2. So that's why we divide this number by 2. Right? We want to find a half value for 175, and turns out 175 divided by 2 is 87.5. So that means if we have, imagine this, if we give a number to each participant and arrange them from the first participant to the last participant, right? The first, the last. And accordingly then, we would, by, placing all these participants on this continuum, right? We can very intuitively determine that here, about here, will be the center of the sample. Okay? So we're asking, okay, so then what is the value here? Is because we have 175 people. So the central value for the sample will be 87.5. And then corresponding to all these participants, we have, their education level, right? All these people belong to a certain category, and these guys belong to the second category of education level. And we want to find what is the category, well, what is the level of education that includes this particular value that divides the whole sample into 2/2. Then this particular education level will be our median education level. Okay? So how to find that? So now we have a goal. We need to find the category that obtains or includes this 87.5 individual. Could this category include this person? Obviously not, because 38 is smaller than 87.5. Could this category include the 87.5th individual? Yes, it could, because 38 plus 65, that's 103. 103 obviously include this individual. So in other words, right here, from the first person to the 38th person, we have not a graduate, not a high school graduate. But then from the 39th individual to, right, yeah, exactly. From the 39th individual to the 103rd individual, right? So here's 39 to all these people, right? There are 65 of them, right? There's 65 of them here, 38 of them here, right? 65 of them here. So now this category, high school only, includes this person, which divides the whole sample into 2/2. So that's why our median education level is high school only. Okay, so that's how you find the median for an ordinal type of data. Okay, so right, the important hint is median separates the sample, not values, into 2/2. So the procedure is, or the rule of thumb is, the median for ordinal data is the category that contains the individual that is exactly at the midpoint of the sample. So first step is find the sample size, 175. We want to divide sample size by half because we want to find the individual that's exactly at the center or midpoint of the sample. And then we see into what category does this person, right? And divided by 2th person fall. And that category is the median category. Okay? So in this case, the median education level is high school only because 175 divided by 2, we said that is 87.5. 87.5 obviously fall beyond the 38 people. But then the next 65 people should contain this guy, right? The first 38. Next, we have 65 of them, and this will give us a total of 103. So the 87.5 individual will be about here. And this is the midpoint of the entire sample. So that's why the corresponding education level will be our median education level. Okay? All right, so this is our class on central tendency statistics. And tomorrow we'll be talking about dispersion. Okay? And very soon, and this week actually, well, this Thursday, we will have our second Q&A, and this Friday we will have our second examination. Okay? So let me know if you have any questions. See you tomorrow.